Hocam?
Okay, we are live. I thought that we are going to have a small introduction, but just we passed it. Okay. Today we are going to have a discussion on the 10th anniversary of the Syrian refugees in Turkey. And we have got a lot of challenges and a lot of issues to discuss today. I have an expert today who joined us, Professor Ulaş Sunata from Bahçeşehir University. Professor Sunata, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been almost a decade since the first arrival of Syrians in Turkey. I think Turkey now is hosting the largest number of Syrians and refugees in Turkey. And you have expertise in these areas, and you have also established a center at Bahçeşehir University. I just would like to welcome you on behalf of TRT World Forum Digital Debates to have a discussion on the Syrians. Let's have a general question first. Now, it's been almost 10 years since the beginning of the crisis, and I think there is no clear roadmap as to the end of the issue. The political climate is and the security climate is not, I think, conducive to return Syrian immigrants. What are the main priorities and challenges and obstacles faced by Turkey in this context with regard to the presence of so many Syrians in the country?
Yeah, thank you, Talip Hocam, for this kind
Professor
invitation.
Sunata, okay, floor is yours.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, you know, today or that was yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Syrian refugees in Turkey. So I'm actually would like to say first, I'm very glad to have these people avoiding from persecution in the Syrian war. So this is, I always say this is the biggest refugee protection in all over the world, I think since the Second World War. So that's a big number. So I think 10 years ago, we cannot estimate this big story. Actually, you know, since the outbreak of Syrian war, more than 5 million Syrians are obliged to leave their home country. So this is, and especially this refugee crisis impacted all neighboring countries of Syria. So we can say Turkey as a neighbor country of Syria, a major asylum country, destination for Syrians. So that's currently, I think the number is more than 3 million, more than 3.6 million Syrians. That's a huge number, and it refers to approximately 5% of our population. That means this is a drastic immigration size in a short time. So actually, Turkey implemented an open door policy at the beginning for Syrian asylum seekers, and then Turkey became the major, or we can say biggest, refugee hosting country all of the world. So this is a big change, especially that was the at the end of 2014. So just 3 years later, the outbreak of Syrian war, then Turkey became the major refugee hosting country. This is a very big demographic shift, we can say, and also a major change in ethnic composition for us. So this is the big challenge. But also we can perhaps evaluate about the urban-rural issues in refugee context in our country, because you know Turkey at the beginning first actually that was, I remember, 30 state-run refugee camps, mostly at the borders, located at the borders of Syria. So, and these refugee camps run full capacity at that time, and at most, I think, 300,000 Syrians live there. But nowadays, most of them actually live in the cities. They spread out all the country, and now very small amount, I think 1% of them live in the camps. So our issue then, our priority mostly urban domain. So we focus urban refugees nowadays. And especially we try to understand their position and their difficulties in obtaining and accessing basic welfare right needs and also livelihoods. So this is the very crucial because we know vast majority of refugees live below the poverty. So this is the very crucial, not only in Turkey, but Lebanon and Jordan's position worse than us. Okay, so and underemployment and low wage are quite great. So this is very crucial. So then I can say this: immediate priority for refugee impact in Turkey is actually should be social and economic integration. So we should using social inclusion, and then we focus also empowerment of refugees. So that means we should structurally change, for example, in especially refugee education and also economic integration, and then we can focus on empowerment of refugees.
Professor,
Can you hear me? No? This is my connection is wrong or okay. Could you hear me? No? Sorry. Yeah, Talip Hoca is facing an internet connection problem, I think. Yeah, okay. I'm waiting for him, but I perhaps a little bit give more details. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I can explain more stuff about perhaps refugee education because this is very crucial point for me and for us all the country. So that means actually we know 65% of the school-age Syrian children are registered in schools. So that means more than
Professor Sunata.
yeah.
Professor Sunata, we will come to the education issue separately because this is one of the, I think, major challenge for all countries. Now, let me return to one of the issues that you have just mentioned, the rural-urban divide, and also the concentration of Syrian immigrants or Syrian refugees in Turkey. If you look at Gaziantep, Urfa, Hatay, Adana, Mersin, and Osmaniye, you can find that there is a significant number of Syrian refugees there. And what we know from the, I think, historical background, that when there are some refugee ghettos, this would, in the long run, pose some social cultural issues. How do you think that can be addressed? Not only in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Jordan, as you have said, these are the three major hosting countries with a great burden. And Kilis, for example, has a great number of Syrian refugees. And in some cities in southern eastern part of Turkey, almost 25% of the population is from Syria. And that is an added, of course, demography. And there is a lot of pressure on social services as well, on public services like education, transportation, and job market. And how do you think that should be addressed by the hosting countries, including Turkey, of course?
Yeah, that means actually we should actually decentralize of migration management. So, okay, we have national migration management technique, but also nowadays there is a kind of start of migration management at the urban level, at the province or at the city. So this is very crucial for us because some cities have taken more responsibility than others. At the beginning, that was the mostly border cities and border districts have more laws, but then nowadays big cities like Istanbul, Bursa, Izmir, Konya took more Syrian refugees in their population. So this is the huge number. For example, in Istanbul, more than 500,000 registered Syrian lives. So this is the huge number. So all cities actually develop their strategic plan, and they try to access this population. Otherwise, you also underline this, there will be segregation, and these kind of ghettos will be in future, because there is a big stress and local tension between the host community and Syrian refugees. Yeah.
Right. I think this process is a learning process for Turkey and for I think other hosting countries. Now you have set up and you are running a Center for Migration Studies, and there are many others in Turkish universities. And Turkey was not a receiving country in the past. Yes, it received, but not that substantial amount of people came. Turkey was sending country. In Europe, there are almost 5 million Turkish immigrants starting from the 1960s. I think, therefore, Turkey was not prepared in terms of structures, in terms of maybe management issues, and in terms of academic discourse with regard to the immigrants. Can you please a little bit elaborate on what sort of, let's say, novelties in management issues that migration brought to Turkey? And secondly, to what extent academic discourse and academic research is taking this issue seriously, and what sort of contributions so far we could see in the academia?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, true. Actually, we should accept migration studies is not a new field in Turkey as well. But 10 years ago, actually, we have no developed scientific community in this field. But, there are some, if we dismiss some limited number of very successful academicians in this field and very well-known researchers, but still, over the last decade, migration and also refugee studies have inevitably attracted more attention by different scholars. So we have now marvelous academic interest in migration issues. So this is very important. For example, this is a kind of indicator, perhaps. There are a lot of master thesis and PhD dissertation on this subject. So and also this is just an indicator, but also most of the migration research conducted in Turkey elaborated this field and graduate programs. I think 6 master programs and 1 PhD program in Turkey in these last 10 years are open. So this is we can say there is still need for institutionalization and academy on this field, but still there is a big booming, we can say, in this field. And academic discourse a little bit different from all policy issues. Actually, we can say academic discourse has been shaped by the Syrian conflict, called attention to human rights perspective. So this is, I think, important. A human rights-based approach is mostly trying to underline empowering people to know and their rights, and increasing the ability and accountability of individuals and also institutions. So this is the very important a mechanism to understand academic discourse on refugee issues. So this is a kind of a little bit a reaction to politicization of refugee issues, in particularly the Syrian issues. For example, you know, in Europe, always try to benefit of externalization of refugees. So they try to push back. And then actually, I can say this, Europe faces its own hypocrisy. And due to the so-called European refugee crisis, they say European refugee crisis. That means they actually encounter with their own hypocrisy. So this is at the other side, you know, we have a saying, iğneyi kendine, çuvaldızı başkasına batır. Know your own fault before blaming others for theirs. So in Turkey, actually, we have also in policy like that, instrumentalized refugees. So this is in academy, we react all these issues and this politicization of refugee issues because we try to focus on human rights perspective.
Well, thank you very much. I think that also shows some of the maybe differences between Europe and Turkey, as you have just mentioned, because Europe has been facing this issue maybe for longer than Turkey, as I said, the migration issue. Therefore, one might argue that there is a stronger maybe administrative and research capacity and background there too. But as you have already said, I think in Europe, especially in recent years, there is such externalization policy. They don't want to deal with this wave of immigration, but they just want to, have some safe havens here and there, and they keep the migrants and refugees there. How viable is this perspective from your understanding?
Yeah, this is I really try to understand, but I cannot understand this position because I know actually we can actually highlight this point. No country has taken responsibility as much as Turkey in this crisis, but Europe always fear from migration. In the EU accession time, Turkey tried to access the European Union. At that time, also always European Union have an agenda related to migration because they have kind of a fear from Turkey, any immigration flow. But at the same time, as a transit country, Turkey always a problem for Europe. This is a kind of not only for Turkey perhaps, but Italy and Spain. This is the periphery of Europe. They always use this country as a border and try to push back the refugees or irregular migration, and they actually have more responsibility other than other European countries. And also, I would like to highlight also this point. Mediterraneanness perhaps is a key word, will be in the future about this, because Mediterranean, you remember 2015, we lost a lot of Syrian and other refugees at the sea, Aegean Sea, but we can say Mediterraneanness is really important. Perhaps we can see as a kind of refugee space in the water.
Right, that's right. But that also brings us to a maybe more global issue. Although we are focusing on Syria, I think what you told me that remind me something different. Yes, maybe European Union tries to externalize the issue, but I think unless we look at the root causes of the migration, we cannot stop it. I mean, that especially large scale of migration coming from Africa, coming from Middle East and Mediterranean, the conflict zones. Now, people are talking about Idlib, for example. Idlib, there is at least a relative, let's say, stability in Idlib, but everything is on a shaky ground when there is so many migrants and people uprooted from their countries, they will, try to go to Europe. And it seems that Europe do not give much attention to the root causes of the problems in the economic issues, the conflicts, authoritarianism, military issues. To what extent, I think this, let's say, ignorance will help us to address the issue?
Yeah, actually, we can say if Europe needs a labor force, and then they try to enlarge their doors. So, but also, this right to asylum or right to refugee rights also develop in Europe. So they actually produce these paradigma refugee rights issues. But at the same time, they they create this. But now these actually fits them, and they don't want more refugees. So this is the very big challenge for them, because actually they also always say diversity, multiculturalism, or the rights issue, rights-based approach. But nowadays, they try to find new formula how they don't take any refugees. So this is the problem, I think. And so for Turkey, we have a big trouble then, because we are as a periphery of Europe and as a transit country, and nowadays we are more destination country. So we should solve all problems. And actually, Europe is a kind of position. They prefer to send money, and then they would be safe in their space.
Right. I think all these issues that would impact the whole world needs to be owned by the international community. The ownership of the problem, I think, is an important one. Turkey cannot shoulder all the responsibilities at the moment. Yes, Turkey, I think, financially does a lot, and socially and politically. Maybe we can a little bit reflect on those issues. I mean, what sort of policies Turkey have initiated for the long-term adaptation and integration of Syrians in the country?
Yeah, we already say, actually Turkey mostly transit country role, but nowadays we can say as a kind of destination country for all Middle East, Africa, because we already say more than 3.56 million Syrians, but also there are others, not only Syrians, but 5,000 Iraqis, Afghanis, and Somalis, and other countries. So we are a kind of new pool, refugee pool. So we should find some solution for example, regulate migration, regularization of migration issues also in our shoulder. So this is not easy step, okay? Because for example, before us, Pakistan was the first major refugee hosting country, and nowadays the second one, I think, that was the Colombia. So this is the always, if you have a problem in your neighbor, then you will get a big trouble in your country, and a new thema in refugee. So that means Turkey in the future always have these kind of issues in their agenda. So at 10 years ago, we cannot expect this kind of issue. That's why we prefer to use always temporary terminology, temporary protection, temporary education centers, temporary accommodation centers. We always use this terminology for Syrian refugees. because we did not expect this amount of refugees, and we think that will be takes just 1 or 3 years perhaps, but it is not true. And at first, you remember the disaster and emergency management presidency, AFAD, actually take responsibility and especially run these camps, refugee camps at the border. And also Kızılay, with its experience in the field, and also they try to give some services. This was a big issue for us because this is a needs a big collaboration, between institutions, blah blah. But also, Directorate General of Migration Management, Göç İdaresi, was established after 2 years of Syrian refugees. So that means, because institutionally we not ready for these big amount of refugees. But still, actually, we try to show our efforts, a big efforts. We should say this. And we try to innovate new techniques, innovative positions. And for example, Kızılay card is also very smart card technology, and develop some needy to meet all the issues, and that they try to saving time and without any logistic obligations. So this is the important solution, for example. And we try to make this, and I think we at 2016, after 5 years, then we understand, okay, this is not temporary, this is permanent. We need integration, we need social cohesion. So this is the important, because for example, Gastarbeiter issue, guest workers in Germany, they accept after 40 years they are immigrant country, but we accept in 5 years. That's also good position, but still we need more transparent immigration policies. Okay, so this should be, because there is some problems, so we need to solve these issues.
Right. I think here one can also look at different discourses in Turkey. The governing, I think, political view is that, yes, we have been hosting the Syrians, and the ideal solution, of course, when the crisis ends in Syria, they might willingly go. But as you have said, to be realistic, I think the world experience also shows us that when even the crisis ends tonight, it will take years and decades for people to go back. The second and third generation, already now we have second generation, it will be difficult. Almost, I think, more than 500,000 Syrian kids were born in Turkey already. Maybe the number is increasing. And also there is a very negative discourse on the Syrians in Turkey as well. I mean, some people argue that they should go back, they do not belong to Turkey. So that makes the government's position a little bit difficult, because the populism is increasing everywhere, not only in Europe, but also I think we have got some side effects of it as well. But also, as you have said, Turkey has, I think, realized that this is a permanent issue. Therefore, we have to devise new policies. How do you think this has been taking place in terms of education, for example, access to health issues, or access to working permits? What is the current picture today in Turkey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think access to services are more suitable in the work, but the problem mostly local tension, stress between host communities and refugees. You underline this. We don't want to Syrian refugees, or this kind of digital, especially in social media, we can recognize a lot of hate speech. So this is very important. But I think here, Turkish policy perspective should leave from the discourses, especially voluntary repatriation and also safe zone issues. So, and also temporary terminologies in the context of Syrian refugees. Otherwise, this local tension will increase. I can say this. Turkish official discourse about Syrian refugees, while convincing the internal public in the country on these large refugee reception, that was actually opaque and runs with always welcoming through common religious codes and also legal status of temporary protection. So it runs top-down process, and some we can say the local people actually react this like that. This is actually hospitality issues, because we actually present them as your guest. Okay, so this discourse actually not work very well, because governmental discourse is not convincing the public, despite its top-down character. But this governmental discourse is like a transcendental meaning of the official rhetoric guesthood is actually, we can say, a kind of drives a wedge between the host community and incoming group. So we should underline here, governmental discourse actually say this is not, this is your guest, they say, but public response like that. This is not our guest, but this is the state's guest. So this is a big gap between the response. Okay. Still, this create a kind of set for we can say anti-refugee perspective, unfortunately.
Right. I think still, I mean, relatively speaking, and when we compare the anti-refugee sentiments and discourse, I think Turkey scores much better than maybe other countries. Still, it is in the formative period. But you are right that we have to address this issue right in the beginning, so that it doesn't get out of control. Now, I just would like you to have your views on the disadvantaged groups that migration impacted, especially women and children. Because migration and refugee, I think these crises influence these disadvantaged groups more than the others. According to your research and findings, what were the experiences of kids and women, how they were influenced by this crisis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, migrants are people who are crossing international borders for purposes other than international protection. But refugees are defined people who had to flee from their countries and are unable to return to their homelands. So due to fear of crucial threats or physical integrity, blah, blah. But here, important thing for Syrians, and especially for female refugees, we can say they are more vulnerable and susceptible to both external and internal oppression, particularly from their intimate partners, especially in these kind of pandemic days, because domestic violence is actually vital issue in the pandemic days. You know, we are safe at home, but still domestic violence is increasing. So, and these we should understand these issues also for refugee women. But at the same time, we know before pandemic, the Syrian refugee women actually have more vulnerable in the country in comparison with other refugee groups, other refugee women, because of these this discourse against Syrians, and especially this is a kind of a stereotype group of migration in Turkey. We can say this is the Syrians, and Syrian women have more attract because of their femaleness, but at the same time, Syrian men also have different troubles. For example, they always identify as a war fighter, or this kind of etiquettes. So this is also another issue. And actually, I would like to underline this. In these pandemic days, socioeconomic cost, making women more vulnerable, and also isolation and confinement, gender-based violence and domestic violence is increasing. So, and also refugee education, also I would like to underline, again, pandemic days, because we always ignore this issue together, thinking together with pandemic, because before pandemic, we have a lot of new solutions for refugee education. But nowadays, after distance education system, they have more disadvantage, because to access the technology, internet, and also they have they need some social togetherness, but they cannot have this kind of chance. Also, language education, especially in Turkey, this should be at the most priority issue, because we should find some methods of teaching foreign native language in the multilingual education. So this is also our obstacle. You know, we don't have any capabilities to give services of Turkish as a foreign language. This kind of teaching system we need. Otherwise, we cannot solve this problem. Another issue, inclusive education school structure. Inclusive school structure, that means not only for refugees, but all disadvantaged groups. They should access and they should have good quality education. Then we can organize this.
Right. I think everything starts with education, the social mobility, and later on, of course, integration. All these issues start right from the education. And I think there has been a lot of progress in this area, but still, I think the challenges are there too. Now, you have underlined a few things, a couple of times actually. You said that there's a hate speech in the media, and there is a discourse that is there, anti-Syrian rhetoric there. Now, I just would like to have your opinion on that as well. What is the role of the media in shaping the discourse with regard to the Syrians in Turkey? Is it positive? Is it negative when you look at the balance? And what should be the role? And you have said that academy has a more, let's say, welcoming and more inclusive discussion, right-based discussion, whereas the media seems to be having a different sort of discourse on the Syrians.
Yeah, true. But it is not only for Turkish media, but also European media. I would like to underline this. We already say the so-called European refugee crisis brings about a negative public perception to Syrians. So this is a big problem, and a lot of scholar studies emphasize this. The significant dominance of negative portraying to Syrian refugees in European social media. Not only a Turkish media, but Turkish media, yeah, true. Turkish media is also have a lot of, we can say, Syrian refugees always under lynching, digital lynching. So massive reaction. But you remember the most critical and exceptional case was the photograph of Alan Kurdi, and that was Syrian 3-year-old child, and but unfortunately, his dead body washed up on the shore of Turkish beach. So that was I think the end of the hot summer of 2015. So, but this photograph is very important, and that was, I think, that was a kind of milestone at that time, and its spread is considered as global moment, not only national, local level, but global moment of intense public interest to the refugees and a positive and emotional reaction. But still, in cyberspace, the child dead body was decontextualized through circulated iterations, and this lightens the impact of original photo. That creates opposite effect and makes it easy to lose its significance of this occurrence in the public space. That means then it became again negative card for Syrians against Syrians. So actually, we are as a human. Actually, we can look humanitarian perspective, but at the same time, we can always think identity interest reaction. So this is perhaps a problem in this aspect.
Right. My last question is about the role of the international organizations, especially with regard to the immigration and Syrian refugees in Turkey. As you have said, Turkey was a transit country, and UNDP and UNHCR was in Turkey, but they were maybe not very active. But after the arrival of Syrians, so many Syrians, do you think their position in Turkey has changed, their budget and their approach to the issue, and to what extent they really contribute to the efforts of the management of the Syrian refugee crisis in Turkey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you only focus. I can only focus first UN agencies, but also we should look also civil society broader sense. But UN agencies such as UNHCR, IOM, UNDP, UNFPA, and UNICEF, UNESCO, all of them are always at the stage of this decade. We should say this last decade in terms of humanitarian aid. They try to collaborate local NGOs and also public authorities. At the beginning, they target to refugee population only, but then I think they recognize it is not fair. And their activities took reaction from local communities, and then they make a shift and try to focus on both refugees and their local environments, other people from the host communities. Then, because this is very important, I already mentioned about the government's role. I criticize this position, but at the same time, I criticize UN agency's position at the beginning. But then after taking lesson, then they find good role. And also, I would like to talk about the broader sense, the role of NGOs, civil society, regarding refugees. I and a colleague of me, actually, we joined a new term, NGOR. That means implying NGOs engage in refugee and migrant-related issues. This shows us there is a kind of transformation of NGOs to NGORs in Turkey, especially, but also all around the world. But in Turkey, we can easily observe these issues. We define the term NGOR as institutions willing to cope with the increasing gap between the state's organizational capacity regarding the refugees and actual social reality. So they try to deal with the problem, not only Turkey, but also inside Syria. And the term actually is applied to organizations and their mission, providing services and organization adapting themselves in these new situation. Because 5% population input, this is a big number, and we need a kind of new integration policy, and civil society try to fulfill this gap, because this is not easy stuff. So they also take responsibility on the shoulder. So and they try to use active citizenship process, and this is the bottom-up process. So this should be working together, because otherwise that will be chaotic.
Well, I think I can see that there is a close cooperation between now the state and the civil society organizations on the ground. I think that's a positive and welcoming development. Now, with that, we come to the end of our digital debates on the 10th anniversary of the Syrian refugees in Turkey. And I would like to thank Professor Ulaş Sunata from Bahçeşehir University. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insights. And also, I would like to say goodbye to our audience, and hopefully we will meet another occasion. Thank you very much, and goodbye to everyone.